What tea do people spread about you? Hi, my name is Sunny, and that's today's question. I have three piles you guys can choose from. From left to right, I have pile 1, 2, and 3. When you're ready, select the pile of your choice and the timestamp, and I will start with pile number 1. So you're more than welcome to select a few piles if you want, and just select the information that really calls out to you, because not every message will. So for you guys, I have Knight of Wands upright. Next, I have the Tower reversed. And then your last card is the Nine of Wands upright. So pile number 1, the tea that they do spread, if and when, by the way, because this isn't always all the time, but if they do, when they do decide to get curious and nosy with you, it has to do with the fact that you charge ahead without giving a second thought. You're not someone that's going to stumble in like the what if scenario, so you're like, get going, like go forth, like I'm not gonna stop and consider all outcomes when I can just like figure it out as I go. You're not gonna be someone that's like too much in a rut of like thinking ruts. So a lot of these, because you kind of learn as you go, you cause a lot of internal changes in you, and I think that might help you. It's not always negative, by the way. The Tower card can be an enlightening moment where you learn a lot about yourself, you mature yourself, and you know your psyche. It has a lot to do with that, psychological aspect that no one can see but they can sense. So they can sense that change in you internally. It's like they can see it to some extent, but it's something that you develop. So learning a lot from the experiences that maybe because you're adventurous and like, example, traveling to places or trying new experiences with people, very specific romantic connections, for example, with this one energy, you learn a lot. So because you have these encounters, and it could be romantic encounters, carnal encounters, they change you a lot internally. So you really learn to change and mold yourself to be sturdier, to be more like, not like rougher, but they give you a thick skin. They allow you to become the person that you needed to, not necessarily become, but you needed to be in the moment. So you're someone that can be not stable, like you are stable for yourself, but it feels like you're the protector. You protect yourself, and you know how to give that protective energy to yourself. And doesn't necessarily mean that you can't rely on others, but it really means that you can at least expect it from yourself, where it's like, I don't have to wait that long to see these changes, because I feel it, like they might take you some time to like eventually get there, but when you get there, I mean, nobody can take your place. Like they know that you're a force to be reckoned with. It's like, I've made up my mind kind of thing. I'm not going to change it. So it feels like that for this pile, where you know that you are strong-willed, and you become it, and you become more like, I can't think of a word. I'm trying to find the word, but I'm like, every time I get close to the word, it slips out of my mind. So you're someone that's very like, not maybe to some extent thrill-seeking, but it feels like you're up for a good game. You're up for not a friendly competition, but like, it feels like maybe if you do feel like that competitive spirit, it's with yourself. It's like, well, you put yourself against yourself to become a different person. It feels a lot like you really do change a lot, with the experiences that you encounter that mold you to be the person that you are. And people find that interesting. That's more or less when they talk about you, where it's like, this person used to be so stubborn, or like they just had their ways and they just wouldn't get out of them, and suddenly it's like, boom, they see that you've changed, and they see like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a long time, and somehow it can be sensed in the air that you are no longer the person you were. And so it doesn't feel like but it doesn't feel like you are necessarily the person to, like, superficial. You're not as superficial, or you're not as not naive, but like, ignorant. You know how like fire signs can not always, not that they can't be bright, but it's like people always, I guess the best way to say, they don't always get the best qualities right when they're at their worst, or they're early on in like their energies, right? So it can be like that where it's like, oh, this person turned around, like they know how to be patient, but they still have that fire, but it's like controlled. They have a control over their emotions, they have their control over their rage, they have a control over their like attack and like rest. It feels like you know when to be protective and when you're not supposed to be. And it feels like when you take quick action when it's needed, and then you rest. So it feels like you learn a lot. You learned a lot through chaotic environments, but nobody can tell with those inner turmoils, because that's something that happens within. So like they can sense something's up, but they can't quite put their finger on it, and that's what they possibly do gossip about you. And you know, that tea that they actually like to discuss, because you kind of might keep those inner battles within and not allow, maybe because you don't want to be seen as weak. Perhaps it's something that you, or not weak, but just vulnerable. Vulnerability is not something that might come easy to you, so you're very protective of that, and you might build those up those walls with this nine of wands up there. So that could be one of the reasons why you're like that. But it does feel like you can sense the danger, or you can sense like when you're not supposed to be in a place, or you can sense where you're not supposed to be around people, or like, I need to get out of here, I need to have a quick action so I can not be taken by these changes that are uncalled for. So I hope you enjoyed that, pile number 1. So that's the tea about you when they do discuss you. Pile number 2, you guys have the Queen of Swords reversed, the Six of Pentacles reversed, oops, and then your last card is a Fool upright. So the tea that they do spread about you, if they do talk about you, or when they do, because it's not always constantly, it's like kind of, you know, touch and go kind of thing. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water. It's the fact that you might keep certain things private, but it's interesting how maybe like, one, you can not be so direct when it comes to things that you really desire and want, or you are someone that's very critical of yourself, or maybe it's just, it could be like you being could be you being critical of yourself and your spending habits, and you're just like foolishly with a fool foolishly spending without really a care in the world, or like you're not really good with your finances, for example. Or it could be like one of those flaws where like you could be a great person, that's not to say that you aren't, but you don't spend things wisely, or you don't take care of those like materialistic things the way you should. It's like, oops, I messed up the car again kind of thing. And people were like, oh, like they expect it maybe, but they're not like, how does that saying go? They're not surprised, like it wasn't expected, but they're not surprised kind of thing. But they do see you maybe because you're like being like a social person. You like to have good fun, that maybe you're not always careful. You're not careful with the things that you have. You're not careful possibly with your own body too. Like you could be someone that like parties hard, for example, and then you end up like being bedridden for the next 2-3 days, you know, throwing up. And you're like, oh, this like hangover time kind of thing. So it could be like that. I do think overall that there's this maybe wastefulness. There's a wasteful energy in here where it's like, are you wasteful with your finances? Are you wasteful with your words, and you're not allocating properly? Because I think they do see the potential that you could be more than just that. You could be someone that could be mature and try new things, or even at that, like it doesn't always have to be with materialistic things. It could be like, because this is like, I feel like it's very varied in energy. I do feel there's different aspects of you that could be wasteful, or I just think that maybe, for example, if you're someone that likes to jump into romances, they're the reason why, for example, they don't allow you to be not necessarily the better person, but they kind of trigger those flaws in you a little bit more, and they enhance them. There you go. They enhance them, they enable them, and possibly you're stuck in those kinds of situations where you're like, well, this person's gonna be different, or this time it's gonna be different, or if I get myself involved in like these environments, like it's gonna be different, and I'm gonna meet good people. I'm not gonna be taken advantage of. Like I'm not just gonna be an open piggy bank wallet, like saying yes to everything because you don't want to be a pushover, but somehow you just end up being peaceful. But people take advantage of that. It feels like that, where it's like it's that wasteful energy where they know that you are more worth than you are, but for some reason they can pick up on the fact that like people around you maybe are not always careful with your fragility. Is that how I'm trying to say? Not vulnerability, it's fragile energy. There you go. I can't say I don't even think I'm saying it right. I think I'm missing like 2 letters. Fragility. I don't think fragility is the right word, but there you go. So that's the kind of energy you're encompassing. That's the T they actually discuss, where it's like they know that you can put your sword down and be like, no. You can cut people down, but you somehow always end up hurting yourself with these words, or cutting yourself down, or putting yourself down, or just putting your boundaries because you want to not rock the boat, and you just kind of want to have a good time, or you just want to be peaceful and you want to keep the peace, or you just don't know how to say no to people because you're just a very giving person, and they take advantage of that. It feels like you get taken advantage of a lot because of the Fool card too. So it's like, for some reason, some more sturdier people maybe around you could help you with that. Encompassing like an earthier energy, being more practical and frugal, putting up more boundaries. Don't allow yourself to be pushed over. That's what the T is about you when they do spread things about you. It's more like an innocence to you, where you're like, oh, you just don't see the harm or the negative nature in people. So that's what I have for you, pile number 2. Next, pile number 3. You guys have the King of Cups upright, the 8 of Pentacles upright, and then your last card is the 4 of Pentacles upright. Wow. Pentacle energy. Sorry, I had to take a water break again. So, pile number 3. When they do discuss things about you, remember it's not always, but it's sometimes. Touch and go kind of conversations. When they do spread tea about you, it's more or less themes relating to your finances and how you got them. So whether you're a female or a male, it's more or less like you're someone that, it's not that they see you as someone that's leisurely, but maybe they're discussing that you didn't have to try so hard for some of you, or you really tried hard to get to this point where you're at right now by being practical, by being frugal, or by getting with someone that allowed you to have these conveniences in your life, right? So overall, pile number 3, I feel that the finances are important in your life, but they're not important because you're like, some of you could be materialistic, but it's because you didn't have anything growing up, and you were forced to not like struggle, not have, but like you were forced to struggle with the burdens of other people. So therefore, you had to limit yourself with a lot of nice things. For example, now you get to have all these things and enjoy them, but you hold them near and dear to your heart, where no one else can see them and touch them. It's like you want to have it, for example, at your home, and you know that your home is very protected, away from prying eyes. Or if you know that, how can I say, you could have invested in real estate, for example, or you could invested in something that was gonna take some time to build, but you can have the comfort of knowing that it's always going to be there, and it's going to be growing and growing and growing. So that income is always stable, and you might not be able to touch it all the time, but it's definitely something that every now and then when you need it, you can touch it. It's like, there it is. So people can see that you're comforted. There you go. Comforted, yeah. People can see you're comforted by the fact that you can have these things And maybe because of marriage, maybe because you married well off, maybe because you establish yourself as an independent person and an entrepreneur, or you establish yourself as someone that's in like the finance industry. What are they called? Are they stockbrokers? You get it. Like a financial advisor, a stockbroker, someone who sells homes. It feels like you know how to maintain your finances, but they do see you as someone that can be frugal, someone who can not necessarily like who hides these things, but they can sense like you smell like money. But they sense that you smell like it feels like it's like coveted money they want. So they're maybe slightly like maybe some, not everybody, but some can be jealous or envious of the fact that you are living it up and you can dine wherever you want. You don't have to worry about your bills if they're paid on time. You don't have to think about the price when you pick up tabs, for example. It feels like that. So maybe that's why they're a little bit envious, but they can sense it. Maybe if you're not someone who's how can I say, you're not someone that's gonna boast about it, but they can sense it. It's like maybe you try to hide it away with like being practical and simple with your clothing, or by not showing off where you're going with trips or stuff like that. It feels like even your vehicle, you're like, I just need a practical vehicle. I don't need like a fancy schmancy car. It's not good to live above your means, but it's nice to know that if I need it, if I have an emergency, I can waste whatever the hell I want. It can be one of those situations. So they can sense it, but they see you as someone who's regal, and they see you as someone who's warm, so they know that you're not someone that's going to be maliciously there you go, maliciously spending without a cause just because. Like you're not a frivolous spender. You're someone that spends when they need it, and you're someone that loves to care for people, so you possibly even provide for people and have a family. So they know you're a bit of a family man and woman, so you could possibly just spend your money in there, make their dreams come true by like taking care of the kids, for example, and like if they want to do extracurricular activities like karate or like like a bougie ballerina, like you can provide them for their uniforms, you can provide them with their competitions and recitals, like stuff like that, where you're like, I can spend the money, but because it makes them happy and they're being creative and they're being fulfilled emotionally, so that emotionally fulfills you too. So it's like, it's kind of like that, where you're very nurturing and you spend stuff in like nurturing others, nurturing yourself too. So possibly even like food. I just feel like food is important. Like food is something that you feel like you are comforted by and you comfort others with. So that's sweet. I do think that they can talk about that. They do see the good and the bad in both aspects. So having money can bring good things, and then it can also bring, the bad things like the envy and stuff. But they do see you as someone who is stable and reliable, very responsible. So they do see you as someone mature. That's very much for sure. Like, but you're very private about these things, in the sense of like, you're not boasting. You're not a boastful person. But they can sense it. Like they can sense that you have money to some extent. So I hope you enjoyed this reading. Thank you so much for watching. And please subscribe, like my channel, and share if you want to. So thank you. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you soon. So bye, everybody.